Enjoy it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item is presentation and recognitions. Who gets to go first?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, it is an honor each and every month to take time out of our meetings to recognize the students who have exceeded our expectations. And as we've said multiple times before, often it's difficult to narrow it down to one or two because we have outstanding students across the board. But tonight, we have students from both the Power Campus and the main campus that we're going to be recognizing. I'd like to start tonight at our main campus. And so if I could ask Mr. Principal Fisher to come up and begin our Student of the Month recognition, please.
Dr. Wilson, thank you for this opportunity. Esteemed school board, thank you for the opportunity to share some of the great things that are happening on our campus. To start out, I'd like to invite Mr. Jared Bodine from our D3R program to celebrate one of his students.
Sometimes it feels like the bar is just a student who actually gets their assignments done. But fortunately, I have a student that is just well far and above beyond that. Our student is traditionally more of a male-focused kind of population. And so this one student came into a room where I imagine she probably didn't feel like she wasn't like the average student in the class. And rather than retreat or hide or feel intimidated in any way, this student has really risen above, I believe, the cream of the crop for our program. Not only has this individual been able to represent our program for for Skills USA in the Fall Leadership Conference, with actually somewhat short notice too, but was able to really rise to that occasion. Also has been able to introduce our class as we have tours coming through, and has been a wonderful ambassador for our class. Also acting as part of our student council representative for our class. So truly out there and always eager to help. Also an example to all the students in the class with her. Many times I see people going over there saying like, oh, Danielle, you gotta help me out. I can't figure this out. And it's never one of those, I'm too busy, I gotta take care of this. No, this student always takes the time to stop and help out all of the former students that have come to rely on her as I have come to rely on her. In fact, a little anecdote, every once in a while, she'll come to me and tell me some of the things that she's learning in our class, which is computer repair, IT, this kind of stuff we're using here with the video conferencing and everything. And she'll tell me how she's able to use these things in her daily life. And just the other day, she came to me and got to tell me how she helped solve a problem with one of her teacher's technical issues at her home high school, something that we had just covered like earlier that exact same week. So it was very fortuitous timing. So it's my pleasure to introduce our Student of the Month for my class. I'm very excited to introduce her, Daniela. Come on up, Daniela.
Hi, my name is Daniela Hernandez-Carabas. I'm in the AM class for D3R with Mr. Bodine, and I'm a senior at Castile High School.
So tell us about how did you find out about EVIT?
So I have a few friends that attended EVIT last year, and I was kind of late on the notice. I didn't know EVIT was a thing as a junior, so I wasn't able to come into the class last year, but I was super excited about this opportunity. And over the summer, I actually applied super late. I was really hoping to get in, and actually the Power campus is closer to me, but I wasn't able to get a class in there. But I was super excited to get in through here to the AM class and have this opportunity.
Very good. So tell us about your path after high school. What are you planning on doing once you graduate from high school?
So it's still kind of vague, but definitely having to do with computers. I'm really looking into information systems and computer engineering, computer software, and just kind of the internals of computer systems.
And so are you a student ambassador?
I am, yes, sir.
Tell us about that experience. How have you enjoyed that?
So it's been really fun. A lot of people come into our class every day, most of the time, and we've had groups of 2. We've had a whole high school come in, like 30 kids, And they're just excited to learn, and especially the targeted classes where people are here looking specifically at our class. It's so exciting to see the future of tech and the people, the faces that are going to be in the future of tech.
That's really good. Do you have family here, mom, dad, siblings?
I do. I have my mom here with me.
So we would like to take a minute. I know Mr. Covington said this, but we're very grateful that you give us the opportunity to work with your daughter. We know that our students are exceptional, and part of that's because of the work ethic that they demonstrate, but it's often rooted in the home life. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to spend time with your daughter this school year. In your opinion, is EVIT someplace that you would recognize, or you would recommend to others?
Definitely, yes. I've gotten so much hands-on training, so many hours in such a short amount of time put into real hands-on work that I can use in the workforce.
Very good. Mr. President, members of the Governing Board, any questions for her?
You make house calls?
This guy doesn't like computers.
Well, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
He is.
Sorry, I get my composure after that last comment. That was a good one. To finish out our main campus Student of the Month, I'd like to invite up Mr. McNamara from our Fire Science 1 program to invite his student up.
Thank you, everyone. My student of the month is Manuel. If I had to describe him in one word, if I had to tell you what type of animal Manuel is, he's a shark. All right? I don't mean that as a pool player, a card player.
Don't say lawyer.
And a Johnny. But if you think about what a shark does, it's always moving forward. It never stops swimming. If it stops swimming, it's going to sink, it's going to drown, it's going to die. All right? Manuel never stops moving forward. All right? He's always looking for opportunities to better himself. He's always looking to help out others, not only in our program, but throughout the community. And he's always seeking to better himself, everything he does. A couple of examples, we do PT once a week, and we're up to 1.25 miles we're running now. So most of it, we stretch, the kids go out, start running, and then you see a blur run past you. The reason why Manuel didn't start with everybody else, because he puts on his full turnout gear and an air pack, sprints to catch up to his classmates, and completes the 1.25 mile run in full firefighting gear. All right?
Wow.
He is one of our squad leaders, and maybe a month ago or so, we had a draft. So I let my squad leaders pick their squads, one by one. And normally, if you think pro sports, when there's a draft, you pick the best available player. In high school, you're gonna pick your friend, the cute girl, whoever it might be. Manuel's exact comment that day was, whoever needs the most help, that's who I want in my squad, because he wanted to help his fellow students out. So he really stands head and shoulders above his peers. First and third Saturdays of the month, the East Valley Hispanic Bomberos meet at our fire building. They work out with the kids, probably an hour, hour and a half of a workout, and then they do interview skills, where how to apply for a job, how to answer the appropriate questions, how to appear before an oral board, and more importantly, the networking skills that you need to look to get hired. Well, Manuel on a Saturday, he runs here from his house, about 3 miles, does this grueling workout with the Bomberos, stays for the interview skills, and then for months there, we were doing technical rescue training, where we were performing rope rescues and everything. Manuel stayed for that. So hours and hours and hours that he spent here on his Saturday morning, and then ran home, refused to ride home from me. Now I'll run. This past Saturday, if you could bring up the picture, Carlos. We talk about community service and helping out others. Here's a picture from this past Saturday. Manuel's in there. The Tempe Fire Department was doing a smoke detector walk in one of their communities. These are the EVIT students that showed up to help the Tempe Fire Department, going door to door, making sure everyone had smoke detectors or batteries or they weren't out of date, performing those community services. It's easy in the fire service to keep score of how many people we've saved, but in the prevention world, in the public education world, there's no way of telling the difference that this makes to the people in that community. And again, a normal kid on a Saturday in high school is sleeping in or going to a soccer game, hanging out with his friends. But our group is special. They were out there taking care of the public. Recently, Tempe's been very good to us, surplusing a lot of equipment to our program. And this is kind of a way that we were able to pay back Tempe through efforts of Manuel and his classmates. So it was outstanding, that turnout. Manuel is probably one of the most polite kids you're going to meet. Very soft-spoken, but there's no doubt he's got the respect of all of his peers, all of the instructors. Sometimes we think he's not human. Some of the things, he's like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going and going. He's doing all the right things to be noticed, not only amongst our staff, but by the Valley firefighters, because someday he's going to be sitting across the table from an interview board, and I'm confident with his skills, his drive, his ability, one of the Valley departments are going to be very lucky to have Manuel as one of their firefighters. So, Manuel, come on down.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name is Manuel Gomez. I'm a senior going to Dobson High School, and I'm very grateful to be here.
So Manuel, is this your second year with us, first year with us, second year with us?
No, this is my first year. I wasn't here my junior year.
How'd you find out about us for your senior year?
So my junior year, that's when I started becoming serious about becoming a firefighter. And I knew EVIT had a fire science program, so I just wanted to do everything I can to get ready. And I didn't let not going my junior year stop me.
Good for you. How has your experience been so far this year?
It's been great. I always try to get out of my comfort zone and take on new challenges and support my classmates.
Good. And so tell me upon completing high school, tell me what your next path is.
Well, next year I want to finish my second year at EVIT, and in the meantime just get life experience, probably be a roofer with my dad.
Good. Do you have mom and dad here?
Yes, I'm here with my mom.
As I said before, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to spend time with your son. We know that, like I said, that this doesn't happen just because it happens because what you do at home. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to be with your son. Very much appreciate it. Mr. President, members of the governing board, questions?
Yeah, sounds very impressive, Manuel. So far, as to what you've learned, what's your favorite scope of the job? Engine work, ladder work, rescue work?
Well, that's all really exciting, and I'm happy that I can be physically active. What really makes me want to be a firefighter is how I can be a role model and be somebody that people can trust when they have a problem. And I just want to be that light on their day.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the philanthropy, and keep up your good work, man.
Thank you, sir.
So well, we have an opportunity in the fire program for students to kind of rise above to receive a special sticker patch for you. And so I've been asked to give this to you in recognition of your achievement here tonight. So I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
As you saw on Saturday, Manuel makes house calls.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, that concludes the main campus student of the month. I'd like to ask Mr. Casaro from the Power Campus to please come up and introduce his students.
Good evening, governing board members, Superintendent Wilson, Dr. Wilson. So I would like to start with our AM student of the month, and for that I'm going to have Mr. Jesus Melion come up and introduce that student to you.
Good afternoon. My first time here. I'm a first year teacher. So this is the first time I've been nominating a student of mine. In the AM class, I teach aviation. I'm in the aviation program. I just recently retired from major airlines. Prior to that, I was in the Air Force. I decided to bring my somewhat knowledge I have of the industry into EVIT. Luckily for me, I have met wonderful students along the way, and one of them is Rachel Remley. I remember Ms. Remley when she came to class one day with her mom. She was very shy. Not anymore. Now she's very confident in what she does. And some of the things I can attribute to her confidence is all the other outside interests she has besides aviation, like being in the color guard for drill team, also volunteering in a senior home, Sunday school assistant, twice a month. And then on top of that, now she is a member of the National Technical Honor Society, and soon to be a member of the National Honor Society. She has a 3.9 GPA in her high school, and she has a 4.0 at EVIT. In fact, today we had an exam, and she scored 98, the highest in the class, both AM and PM. Besides all that, Ms. Remley is flying. She is only 16 years old and already has flown 32 hours. She solo about 2 weeks ago, right? About 2 weeks ago, she solo, which that means is an instructor, you go with a certified flying instructor, and then when they deem fit that you can fly by yourself, she flew by herself. So how many hours you got solo now? I can't remember. 3.7. She has overall about 32 hours of flying time. She is too young to get her license. So she's flying an airplane without actually being legal to fly to get her license. She'll get her license on her 17th birthday, which that's what she's striving for, which will be June 30th of this year. So everything is going like clockwork for her. I think part of the academics that we provide at EVIT, the aviation program, has helped her tremendously. I have currently 35 students between the AM and the PM class, and out of those 35, I have 17 students flying. I think it's the first time it's been done at EVIT. So I have a bunch of good kids and students, I call them, my students, and Ms. Remley epitomizes the cream of the crop in the class. So that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you for having me. My name is Rachel Remley. I am a junior at Hamilton High School.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. You're 16 years old, right?
Yes.
You can't get your license till you're 17,
Yes.
but you're already flying.
Yes.
Wow. That's so. That is really, really impressive. So how did you hear about EVIT?
I knew from my peers in high school that EVIT was a thing. I didn't know that you guys had an aviation program. I only became interested in aviation halfway through my sophomore year, and I wanted to learn more about it and get involved. And so when I was signing up for my junior classes, I saw that EVIT had an aviation program, and I thought, why not try it and see if I like it? And I realized that this is where I'm meant to be, and this is my dream.
Good for you. So upon completion of high school, tell me how you see things going for you. What are your plans after completing next year?
Currently, I am looking at multiple colleges as well as the Air Force Academy. So I hope to get a bachelor's degree in aviation management and hopefully a minor in aviation safety. While in college, I also plan to complete all of my other ratings and licenses to become an airline pilot.
Wow. So yeah, I know. So you're completing your first year. Are your plans to return to us next year as a second year?
Yes.
Very good. I've said this to the two previous students, but do you have parents here tonight? Do you have?
Yes, I have both my mom, my father, and my stepmom.
So you've heard me say this before, but I just want to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to spend time with your daughter. It is a joy to sit here and hear the success that she's having, but recognizing that that's not just a her thing or our instructor thing, that's also because of you. So thank you for giving us time to spend with your daughter. Very much appreciate that. Board members, questions for the student?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations. That's awesome. And then I'm just curious, what other colleges are you looking at besides the Air Force Academy?
I'm looking at Embry-Riddle and Preston. Prescott, as well as ASU, Western Michigan, Lewis University, and LeTourneau.
Awesome. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Rachel, Jeff Cleedham here. Embry-Riddle is a pretty great program. So that's another. The Air Force Academy is pretty good too. But Embry-Riddle is a top-notch place. So go get them. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Thank
So
you very
I
much.
have a question. So you took your first solo a couple weeks ago. How did they memorialize that or celebrate that when you came back in?
In EVIT or in flying?
At your flying school?
Well, in the aviation industry, after one solos, it's a tradition to cut the back of your shirt. And so my instructor cut the back of my shirt, and I got to decorate it and put it in a frame.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's really cool. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So for Power Campus's PM Student of the Month, I'd like to introduce Ms. Amber Tamori. She's going to talk about one of her second-year vet students.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to introduce Ava Crawford, who is one of my second-year vet assistant students. She has been short of phenomenal in my classroom. She is top of the class, always gets the highest test scores. I look at her test scores as a reflection on my teaching. When I see that she gets ones wrong, I'm like, what did I do wrong? She does great. She's always phenomenal. She's always helping out whenever needed. She's eager to learn, lend a hand to her classmates when needed. She currently actually already works at a veterinary clinic as a vet assistant, so she's already there. Her main goal is to become a veterinarian, and she recently applied and had interviews at 2 international veterinary schools. The first one was in London, and the second one in Scotland. And she actually heard back from the one in London, which is the Royal Veterinary College of London, and she got in, which is awesome. So top of the class veterinary school. So I'm so proud of her. Not only do we have that, but she's also placed first in HOSA for veterinary science. So right now we've had 2 rounds of qualifications. Both rounds she's gotten first place. So now she's going on to the actual regional conference or the state leadership conference here in a month. And I'm sure she'll get first in that too, because she's that great. I'm just so proud of her, all that she's done. She's just phenomenal. I don't know what else to say, but I'm absolutely so proud of her, and she's a great student to have in class. You can come up here, Ava.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ava Crawford. I am a senior at Hamilton High School, and I am in veterinary assisting to PM.
Wow. So tell us because I got a lot of questions, right? Before we get there, tell us how you found out about EVIT.
So I was in the agriculture program at Hamilton for 3 years. So we had some alumni of that program go to EVIT for veterinary assisting specifically. So that's how I found out about it.
How has your experience been here?
It's been great. I really love the program. I love the hands-on ability. I wouldn't have my job as a veterinary assistant if it wasn't for this program, and I feel like I've really learned much more than I would have like hands-on in the workforce training. You learn in this program, you learn the why behind what you do.
That's great. So then talk a little bit about your plans after high school, or at least what you're kind of thinking.
Yeah, I want to go to veterinary school in the UK. So those are 5-year programs, and they're accredited by the Board of Veterinary Medicine in America. So all I have to do is take the same national licensing exam that any other veterinarian takes and come back to US and practice here.
That's amazing. So how did you find out about that? Really smart.
I used to work with a doctor who graduated from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. So that's sort of how I found out about it.
Good for you. Good for you. Do you have parents or guardians or anybody?
No, not here today.
Okay, well, will you please tell them that we're so grateful and thankful that they've given us the opportunity to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, members of the governing board, questions for our student?
I only have one. Do you two know each other? You go to the same high school. Well, now
No,
you know
don't
each
know
other.
each
Would
other.
you introduce each other
wants
and
his big.
make a friend, new friend? Both of you are great.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I just want to add one thing. So after talking to her the other day in my office, I found out that the veterinary school in London, that's her safety school. The one in Edinburgh is the one that she wants to go. So it's kind of nice that that's your safety school.
So I was having kind of a sidebar conversation with our director of legal services, and we both said to ourselves, to each other, when we hear the stories of our students and what they're doing and what they're accomplishing and where they're going and what they want to do, we feel like total losers because they're such amazing stories. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. I don't know if you people want to stay for the rest of this. You're welcome to leave. It gets a little dry from here.
You're welcome to stay or leave.
I know what we're going to do is we'll thrill you to death, but
I'm sorry, but the EVIT teachers have to stay. Not really. Oh, we got rid of our crowd.
they were waiting for that.
Mr. Lane, you know how to clear a room.
It's a gift. All right, let's move on to item 4, the minutes. We need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held February 14, 2022.
So move.
Seconded?
Have an
Ms. Boggs had it first.
I don't know.
echoing second, Ms. Boggs, I guess. Any discussion or corrections or comments? There are not. Ms. Boggs, would you conduct the vote, please?
Covington?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
And Fleetum?
Aye.
All righty. Do we have any people who have responded to our call to the public?
No, sir.
You empty the room out.
I've run them all off, huh?
Wow.
Oh, well. Next item is our personnel agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Also move.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or otherwise?
Yeah, I do. You have one resignation from Kim out of LPN. I can't pronounce her last name. She says here in her letter that she finds EVIT environment is simply not fit for me. Do you know why that is? You don't have to tell me why, but do you know why?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want specifics. I just want to make sure you know.
All righty. Anything further? Let's have a vote, please.
Covington?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
And Fleetum?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, next, item 7, we've got a few items for information and discussion. So, Dr. Wilson, we'll turn it over to you. Looks like you're presenting all the 3 of them.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President,
Or
members of
4.
the governing board. Item A, the quality service survey. Every year, we take the opportunity to seek input from our staff on what's working well, areas that we can improve upon. It's a rather lengthy survey, and I included it for you with the scoring, just so you can kind of have as a backdrop. There were also comments that were included that I'm not sharing. I think those are more important to stay in our administrative team. And what we'll do with that is we'll look at the areas that are working, and we'll look at areas that maybe we're struggling, specifically areas in terms of comments, and look for trends within the comments, not only specifically to certain departments potentially or across the system, and see if there's areas that we as a system can improve upon. We'll come back to you a number of times with the discussion of what we're doing to improve. I think the thing that's important though is I'm unfortunately, sadly at times, I'm much more of a glass half empty versus a glass half full person, and I think that's the human nature. I think if you look at the ratings, though, for the most part, the vast majority of ratings and all of the indicators across the system were a 7. Now, we can improve in all of those areas. My expectation as an organization is that between 7 and 6, we're running at about an 80%. And so we have work to do. But even if you look at the ratings from the context of, say, a 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 5, 6, 7, certainly we're headed in the right direction. Have some areas we need to improve on, but heading in the right direction. So I think it's important that if we're going to take the time to survey our staff, that we do something with the results, but we also share those with you. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. Questions, concerns, or thoughts on that before I move on to item B?
Yeah, I had,
Dr. Wilson, Jeff Fleetum here. Did I interrupt somebody? I apologize.
go ahead.
These are great results that I'm looking at. I would encourage you to celebrate the goodness here, but look at the outliers. That's where real change can come. There's some theory about 1% improvements every day or every week, kind of compounded some things. But the outliers here, which are your 4 3s, 2s, and I think I saw 1 someplace, but I don't. Sometimes the 1s are not recoverable. But to take a look at those and see if there's any consistency in those areas, and see what you can find out. Maybe there's some things that you can take care of to get those things taken care of. So,
agreed.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, it was a long survey. What kind of completion rate did you get?
So we have in the neighborhood, I think of, no total. So we had, I think we have 300, how many employees do we have? 220, and I think we had about 170-ish completed.
They completed it?
Yeah.
Did you capture how many bailed out after 20, 30 questions, or?
Well, you can, and admittedly, this was a long survey. I think part of the challenge is that you can have better surveys, you can have worse surveys. I think the goal is if our staff is saying we want to be heard, then it's incumbent upon us to not only let them be heard, but to continue to look for ways to find more refined surveys, which we're prepared to do. I do think that we could have made it shorter had we clumped certain departments together more and had a much broader survey just about the district. But part of what I wanted to find out is not only how is the administration, the district office doing, but how are the other departments doing as well. And in order to do that, then you start having to parse out a large organization into multiple pieces, which makes it longer.
Mm-hmm. I know when I see we get these long surveys, and you get to 50, you think, this is it. No, there's more.
Keeps on going.
Wait, there's more.
Keeps on going. And the thing that we realize, anybody who's ever done surveys realizes, is, as to Mr. Fleetham said, some of the celebrations that rang through, you could see was the same individuals ringing the same celebrations. Mm-hmm. Some of the concerns that were communicated, you could see was the same individual with multiple times with that. So the outliers are somewhat difficult to kind of navigate. To his point, I think our area is in the areas of the 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6 that we really can look at some similarities or some consistencies in the responses and make some incremental changes.
I agree with that. Thank you.
So I read through it. It seemed like a pretty glowing survey. I was just curious, what areas of concern do you kind of put the greatest priority on? Anything surprise you?
No, one thing didn't surprise me, but disappointed me, and that was somewhat reflected on me. I think at the end of the day, part of the challenge, and we've had this conversation before, part of the challenge that I'm still trying to work through and navigate is growing from being the superintendent that was always in space to the superintendent that's working hard to push the organization in the direction that ultimately at times means I can't always be in space. And so trying to still figure out what that means. And so I think in some areas I've got to do a better job. And that didn't surprise me, but it also disappoints me that you see some of that in the survey. I also think there are some concerns about communication, which is still reflected on me. But as we are going through the changes that we're going through, I think we as an organization, starting with me, but also then feeding into those that I work with directly and our directors, have a real understanding of the communication so that, you know, if I have a faculty meeting and I share the communication to all 350 folks, that's not the only time it should be shared. And what should be shared then is consistency and consistently. And I think that what we're finding is that there's not enough communication or consistent communication about where we're going and why we're going there. And that, again, starts with me, but also becomes incumbent upon those that I work with directly and those that are directors to be able to have the conversation and understand the conversation well enough so that there is some of the consistency across the system.
Okay. Anything further from anyone? Well, let's roll right into the next thing.
Item B, compensation. I know that Ms. Boggs had raised this issue on a number of occasions to begin the discussion about compensation moving forward. And what we're wanting to do is to get some suggestions from you all, not an action item, but just some sort of suggestions on what you'd like us to see from us when we start down this road of compensation. Clearly, we're going to pull together our benefit committee, which is a committee that's comprised of teachers, classified, certified, administrative staff, to really kind of take a look at what our compensation packages should be. What we do know, though, is that we need to do a market analysis both of industry, secondary, post-secondary institutions. We've said this before, but we're in a unique space, right? Because we look for attracting staff that aren't necessarily coming from the public sector, they're coming from the private sector. And although we recognize that in some cases we can't be as competitive as the private sector is, we've got to do better in some areas because we're being priced out in some senses. But we also know that as a public institution, that isn't necessarily as possible. So we're as possible as we would like it to be. So we are going to do a market analysis. Just as a bit of information, the cost of living increase in Arizona is 2.2% right now, but inflation increased 7.5%. And so when we start looking at compensation, obviously it's not your jobs to offset inflation. But we do know that if inflation's running at a 7%, that as it stands today, individuals that don't get at least a 7% are going to be actually having less that they're spending power than they did the year before, even though you all have been very good to our staff and our employees. Benefit cost increase, we're expecting about a 7% increase this year in our healthcare. And we've kind of leaned in this direction a couple of times, and this is kind of what I said at the very beginning, but we know that there are certain segments of our industries that we're trying to attract talent to teach for us that are in huge demand right now, healthcare being one of them. So as an example, if we're looking to get RN nurses to work in our programming, he or she could be making upwards of $100,000+ a year in the private sector. We know we can't pay that, but the salary schedule right now does not necessarily get some of those individuals to that spot or even close to that spot. So the idea of we have hard to fill stipends currently, so positions that we just can't fill, hard to fill, is there value in starting to look at a stipend towards those high in demand positions that we know we're being priced out of in order to stay competitive in the salary package offer so that we can attract those individuals and they can come work here for us. So again, my typical word salad, I said a lot right there, but really what we're looking for is to kind of get some direction from you all on some additional pieces that you would like us to consider as we start pulling together the benefits committee so we can come back to you in the next couple of weeks with recommendations for compensation and benefits. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So anything you'd like to... Yes.
Dr. Wilson, I have a question. Is there, and pardon my ignorance if it glows even more so with this question than it has in the past, is it possible to get sponsorships or funding from the private sector to fund certain areas of instruction at EVIT?
I don't know if it's legal. And so,
well, that's what I was saying. I wasn't sure if it was or not. I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
So
universities do that a lot.
Yeah,
do you think we can?
we can.
Yeah. That's a little bit of a precedent for our level of organization, but universities and community colleges all do it.
Right, but we could even do it under, if there was a business or industry that wanted to offer a grant.
A grant.
for so many, or to a grant to cover the cost of the instructor for 1 year to help meet the demands of the whatever XYZ. Sure, we could do something like that. We would have to, of course, it would have to be open to more than just EVIT, but if it was looking at other CTEDs, they absolutely could entertain offers.
So my question wasn't so out of line then.
No.
Thank you, Ms. Doolin.
No, that's a little homework for Mr.
Yeah, there's
Keller.
actually some grants out there. We probably don't qualify for most of them, to Mr. Lane's point, yet. I had to throw that in there. But there is grants that do cover for new programs or high demand programs that will cover the cost of the instructor.
Other areas, anything that you would like us to be thinking through or on as we go down this road over the next month?
I think one of the things we kind of need to look at is benefits, but sometimes to me, benefits on an employment situation are every bit as important as the actual compensation number. And I know public schools have a terrible time with spouses and dependents as opposed to the private sector. I think we need to try to explore that and, at least spotlight what we can do. We're never going to compete with the private sector on health coverage because we're a tax-based organization, and that becomes kind of a slippery slope between the gift of public funds to people who aren't employees, but it's huge for families.
It is. So, checking my comprehension, if I'm hearing you correctly, if potentially, and I don't know the numbers, Edith can tell us, but if potentially covering a single employee was $1,000, right? And that was the allocation that the board had given in years past, but family health would be $2,000, I'm making it up. Could the single coverage allocation be $1,500 for those that are interested, meaning as a way to offset their dollar amount towards coverage?
That's something we just got to crunch.
I just made those numbers up. But
yeah, I get it. It's not so much what we allocate as what it comes out of their paychecks. Mm-hmm. Because for the single employee, mostly we're bearing most of the cost.
All of the cost, correct.
Where you get into the dependence things, and that's a tough situation, and that's part of a virtue of our type of organization. But
Okay.
I know it weighs heavily on a lot of families.
It does.
Are there any specific disciplines where we're experiencing higher levels of concern of attrition? For example, the nursing. Are we losing nursing like crazy?
We're losing them, and we're also having a hard time finding them in the health sciences. We also, in some cases, in some of our industrial trades, the shortage of labor has increased the compensation in the private sector, and so we have individuals within our system that, could leave us and go make $30,000 a year more.
So I think that's something we need to maybe get some more information on, is especially, not only us, I know the private sector is dealing with the same thing, especially with nursing. I mean, it's pretty much, mercenaries out there trying to get guys to come into work. So figure out what we're up against and where we need to address specifically the most.
Okay.
How can we make working at EVIT more attractive other than just a paycheck? What's
Yeah,
under a paycheck?
it's
That's
interesting.
a tough one.
It is, and again, look, I'm not interested in drinking Kool-Aid. I think part of what we do well is creating an environment that is at a place that people want to be a part of. Now, sometimes we're not as good in that as we should be, and I acknowledge that, and I think we see some of that in the survey. I think the challenge with it is, at the end of the day, though, you pay mortgage, and you understand this, you pay mortgage with dollars, not on good feelings from the superintendent. So somewhere in there's got to be that balance. We're never going to be able to compete in some areas with what the private sector is paying, but maybe we can get closer in some areas. And the truth of the matter is that we have some of our programs that the private sector isn't as competitive as maybe it once was or is compared to others. And so are we comfortable beginning to differentiate through kind of that not hard to fill but hard to compensate stipend, so that we have some of our programs that just the industry is driving the need for us to have dollars allocated to some differently than others, simply because that's what the industry is driving.
Agreed.
So we will then take this back, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Wilson, so I know that part of the sell, I guess, for what the study you're doing is to figure out what kind of special professorial types of teachers that you can reach out to. So I would think that folks at the very beginning of their careers as teachers in some area, let's say aviation or something, and at the end of their careers when they're looking to not be working huge hours anymore, so beginning with children and schools and all that, those would be two logical pools who would be interested in maybe not making as much as they're going to make in the center part of their career, but are going to have reduced hours and benefits and nice working situation. So it seems to me that there are pools of people that we ought to be thinking about targeting. But the other thing I want to say is, and this, I think this is a hard truth of the matter, at the end of the day, this is going to cost us more money. And we just have to figure out a way Dr. Wilson has to be able to, or whoever's doing the hiring has to be able to go to that person and say, and we can get you, because you're a specially qualified person, we can't find anyone else, we'll give you an extra $20,000. And however that's done, it's just gonna take more money to find some of these, nursing, classic example. My daughter's making a lot of money, and she's been told if she goes private, she can make 3 times the amount of money she's making. She's not going to do that. She's a mom with a baby, likes her hours. But I know you all know nurses are just being gobbled up, and so for instructors, we need those instructors. And it seems to me that the place that we might be able to find them is early professionals and late professionals.
Mr. Hoffman, you make a great point about the later part of the career. We are constantly struggling to keep staff at my agency, particularly staff attorneys. Staff attorneys are, they're 2 years at the most. That's really what they are. One of the things that we tout a lot is that it's an 8 to 5 position, and for our attorneys, they're not billing in 6-minute increments, right? But in our other arenas where we bring in investigators that are typically in mid-career or in career, it's 8 to 5. The income is not exactly what and we're losing them left and right to construction. There's no way we can compete with what I'm paying when a guy can go out and be a superintendent and make $150,000 a year. It just doesn't work. But when we add those kind of things and the leave and the benefits, now benefits are a little bit different with the state perhaps, with the school perhaps, but state benefits, health benefits are remarkably much more a better bargain than you get in the private sector. It's just it's crazy. So we try to do that, but that 8 to 5 for those specific things, if you're a construction superintendent it's not 8 to 5. Or if you're a nurse, it's not always 8 to 5, right, Ms. Doolin? It's it's 3/12, and then I try to back 3/12s back to back, so I've got actually 6/12s, and then I got some days off, but it's crazy. So it's going to be a challenge, Dr. Wilson, and we got it's a huge pool of people we can look for, and it's not always just one, and maybe it's the way we can package this or message this to each group that might be a talent pool for us.
To Mr. Hobson's point, I realize everything's going to cost us more money, but I think one of the main priorities for me is we got to figure out what our priorities are and where our biggest risk for attrition is. To me, preserving continuity is one of the main things we need to work on.
And we have to remember, money isn't everything, but it pays the electric bill, right? That's the deal. It pays the bills.
One of the things that I would encourage, and I appreciate the conversation, this is giving us a lot of direction, a lot of information to be able to kind of spring forward and use as we try to come back to you with thoughtful recommendations. One of the things that I would want us to also keep in mind, and I know you are, is that we have individuals on the side that we know are hard to fill. But there's also a significant portion of the organization that isn't going to necessarily be in that, and that's where the discussion of the Arizona, the 2.2% cost of living, the inflation. So there's both ends of the spectrums. We're having to figure out how to fill a gap of positions that we're being priced out of in the private sector. Yet at the same time, we know that our staff is in a position where we're competitively, you guys have been competitively amazing, but because of situations that you can't control, they're actually having less purchasing power now than they did last year. So how do we balance those pieces out? So thank you very much for that information. We'll use that as we begin the process. Thank you.
All right, and adult ed program fees.
So Mr. Fleetham had asked this repeatedly, and I think it's a very good question. So thank you for making sure that you're keeping it at the forefront of our mind. One of the things that we want to be able to do as an institution is to make sure that we're being at a price point for tuition that is reasonable. We're not a for-profit, and I think that the structure as it is now is a structure that's been in place for a period of time, and it's ripe to change it. And it's ripe to change it for a couple reasons. One, if we're fortunate to have our associate bill pass, and I'll talk about that at the end, that actually kind of is a driver for changing it. But to Mr. Fleetham's point, whether that changes or not, whether that passes or not, it still doesn't change that, are we really charging what we should be charging in our adult education? And so one of the things that we're going to do and come back to you in the next couple of weeks is to really begin looking at what does it cost us to run a program, right? So if we have salary and benefits, if we have utilities, if we have whatever the case is to run a program, what does that cost? And then in there begins the discussion of saying if it costs $10 to run a program, then every quote unit of time that's purchased, if I'm saying this, credit that's being registered for by a student should have a value that's a prorated portion of that, right? So if this class is 10 credits and it costs us $10, then each one of those credits is $1. So that student would be charged $1 in order to complete in order to be able to be in the program. That dollar may be more than what is at the community college, because we know that there's no state subsidy that's coming into us for our adult education, but it's certainly going to be much less than the for-profit is going to be. So our approach, Mr. Fleetham, but others, is to kind of go at it in that direction. Is that what's the amount that is going to what's the amount that we have to make sure we capture in order for a program to pay for itself, and begin working out that way based on the credit earned per program. Does that make sense? Okay, then that's the approach that we're going to do with their adult education, and hopefully come back to you in the next 4 weeks with that as well. Mr. Hart?
So do we have a program now where, especially the adult education stuff, where we have sponsorships for these programs? For example, if Banner Health wants to do an interview process, they may sponsor 2 or 5, however many nurses they may need, where they cover some of those fees for those people. Are we working any of that?
So what we're working on more, when you're talking nursing, is clinical space. That's their leverage point. So we are in talks with Banner right now with our LPN students to be able to have an exclusive partnership with them to be able to do our clinicals all at a specific unit in a specific hospital that's desperate. They want to have a group of LPNs who are interested in doing surgery.
So the reason I bring it up, a lot of the community colleges, the fire science programs, they'll have a department sponsor. They'll have these guys go through a competitive process, or girls, to try and get sponsored for them to pay for them to go through that program. I think the possibilities for us, especially in the construction industry right now with the demand that it is, I think there's a potential avenue there. And I understand Mr. Fleetham's concern about the cost of, somebody's got to invest to get educated to go out into that workforce. And when you have employers that are in high demand of labor, I think that might be an opportunity out there for us. I don't know how we approach that, but I don't know where we are on that. I'm ignorant to this whole deal. That's why I posed the question.
No.
I do think that there's some avenue there that we can, with our construction trades, really, truly, our construction trades would probably, if we had adult students who were interested, be more than happy to sponsor several of them. A lot of them are also offering us paid internships right now for our students, which we haven't been capitalizing on, and that's for our existing high school students. So we're in the process of putting together how to manage that and who do we have that can manage those extern opportunities that are paid versus even the ones that aren't paid, just so that we're not losing, because right now we're having externs fall through the cracks because the instructor can't do it all. So we need someone to manage them, to help them put those pieces together from the advisory who's offering the paid internship for the students, to do the interviews, to help get them set up, to get them in the internship while the teacher is still teaching the course.
Do we have any? Go ahead.
Gulen and Dr. Wilson. I know Heidenreich Foundation is sponsoring, is scholarshiping some students at EVIT. And they're probably going to continue to do more. I spent some more time with them, and you know them as well. The point I'm trying to make with the adult ed program fees is, for instance, with the CDL program, you could probably go to a regular CDL program and pay somebody $7,000 to get your CDL crammed down, in 4 weeks. Simply because the private sector charges $7,000 doesn't mean we should charge $6,000. We should charge what is right. We're a not-for-profit. We're not going broke here. But the idea also isn't to get, and I agree, I like the fact of getting more and more people, all areas of what we educate our students in, nursing and aviation and veterinarian and all of these. But this construction sciences are offering up what they have. Their biggest problem in many areas is insurance. We get kids, young people that come out of these classes that are as qualified as anybody that has been in the field for 5 years, but they can't be insured. They can't be insured. So, but I think we're there. I think if we look at this stuff with, through a different pair of glasses than we have in the past, and look at adult education program fees as not being a profit center, but being the way we educate our other students, that we have to, we don't want to go broke on it, but we're not trying to build an empire on adult ed program fees.
And I think, Mr. Fleetham, that's kind of the position, that's kind of the direction that we're going, is to figure out what does it cost us per credit in order to break even, right? And then maybe we don't want to break even, maybe we want to have additional, but to your point, not necessarily the cushion that a for-profit has. So can we come in at a price point that's competitive and that is ultimately in the best interest of the learner, and still giving us the ability to have the dollars in revenue to pay for staff, as an example, back to the compensation.
And top quality education, too.
Correct.
Top quality, that's it.
So a question to you, Mr. Fleetham, when you talk about the problem getting insurance, are we talking about the minors, the kids under 18?
No, it's not just 18. It's in some instances it's under 25. If you have any teenagers and you try to buy them auto insurance, it's that. But some of these companies can't get proper insurance for their workforce, and they're struggling in a variety of different ways. Some of the new laws that changed the CDL licensing laws to where a person can acquire a CDL at 18 is a great step in that arena. So a lot of times people think of a CDL as being a cross-country driver, but those licenses go for forklift drivers, crane operators, lift people, dump truck drivers, delivery things. So, however, because you can get your CDL at 18 doesn't mean the insurance companies are going to insure them yet. So it's kind of lagging behind. And you and I, we all know here at EVIT, our students, whether they're completing at the finish of high school or whether they're adult learners, are far and above their competition. They show up. So they're way ahead of the competition when they come out of here, but there's some there's some roadblocks that's tough for them to navigate, and it's tough for the industry to navigate, but they're working on it like crazy. I know Rock Products and Mining Association and a lot of the contractors are doing what they can to get around that or get through that. So that's where that happens.
So thank you. You guys gave us a ton of information in both those, so I appreciate the direction, and we'll take it and get to work. Much appreciated.
All righty. We have some policy updates. Second read. I don't know if it's one policy in subsections or multiple policies, Mr. Kevel.
There's a review.
Thank you.
We read them
Mr. Lane,
last month.
it's just policy GCO where we corrected the definition of a kid
And
carrying
the
teacher.
subsections, okay.
Correct.
All righty. I'll entertain a motion for that policy.
Also move.
I'll second.
Okay. Any concerns, comments, questions, or otherwise? Hearing none, let's have a vote.
Covington?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Leadham?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next item is additional sole source approval for fiscal year 21-22. Who would like to speak to that?
Ms. Price?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Each year, we do come before you and ask you for approval for a number of sole source purchases. Basically, in these particular cases, what we're asking for, there are a number of accrediting bodies that we don't have, we're not able to do competitive bids for because they're the sole provider, as well as some of the industry certifications that our students take. So this is just a list of additional ones that were not included in the initial request.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the additional sole source approvals.
Second that.
Okay, any comments, questions, or otherwise? Hearing none.
I do have a question. I do have a question about Pearson View. I suspect they're like some of the other proctors, that there's one industry or one certification that they have the exams for and the others don't. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any further? Hearing none, Mrs. Boggs, will you conduct a vote?
Covington?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
And Leadham?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And that motion carries. Next is approval of overnight travel for HLC 2022 Annual Conference, Higher Learning Commission. Is anyone speaking to that, or?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, this is another step in our ability to be able to meet the requirements should our bill be passed for our associate degree. Currently, our accreditation is a national accreditation. HLC is a regional accreditation. It's our belief, quite honestly, that within the next 3 to 5 years, the difference between national and regional, that discussion is going to look very different than it is today. Currently today, you have kind of two camps. The regional says one thing, the national says one thing, and it's our belief that we need to be proactive in positioning ourselves to be accredited in both areas, right, both regionally and nationally, so that when we have our associate bill passed, we're able to be in a position to very quickly begin the process of not only awarding the associate degree on the national accreditation, but also preparing ourselves to become regionally accredited. In order to do that, though, that's a space that none of us, well, not none of us, most of us aren't overly familiar with because that hasn't been in our wheelhouse. And so if we're going to be successful in applying for regional accreditation through HLC, makes sense for us to begin sending individuals who are going to be responsible for helping to shepherd that accreditation process to the training necessary for the accreditation, and that's what this is.
Thank you.
As I look at it, you're going to have 5 to 6 people going, you haven't picked them out yet? You don't know?
So, yes, there are some that we picked out. I mean, part of it is it, and I didn't want to start talking to people about going if this was something that wasn't going to be necessarily supported by the governing board. And so we figure that there's between 5 or 6 that will need to go. Myself is one of them, I will tell you, because as the superintendent, I need to understand what's going to be happening there. But there will be others as well.
So you're thinking 6?
5 or 6 depends on. One of the individuals that we're wanting to potentially take. That individual, it may not be possible. We just know what their schedule is, and if their schedule isn't, then we won't have them go, and there's no need to have a replacement for that individual.
All right. Well, let's have a motion and.
I'll move the approval of the request for overnight travel. Item C, 8C.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion among the board? Hearing none, Ms. Boggs, will you conduct the vote?
Covington?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Fleedem?
Aye.
All right, that brings us to our superintendent report.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, I swear to heavens I will make this quick. So there's 2 items I would
Don't
like
swear
to.
at us, please.
There's 2 items that I would like to bring to your attention. First is the status of House Bill 2034. That's the associate degree bill. We were fortunate to have that pass out of the House Education Committee by a vote of 6-3, 7-3, something like that, out of the House Education Committee, and it was heard and voted on by the entire floor and passed the House by a vote of 50-9. And so it was now sent over to the Senate. There's some language work that we have to still do within that bill that we plan to have done within the House, within the Senate itself. The targeted goal is to have the Senate Education Committee hear it Tuesday the 8th. And should we be successful in having it recommended out of the Senate Education Committee, hopefully within the next week or 2 after that, it would be voted on by the Senate. Assuming that is successful, then the language changes that occurred in the Senate will need to go back to the House to get approval. But I don't anticipate there being issues there, simply because the language was language that the House is familiar with. And then, as the process works, then if we're successful in getting the bill out of the Senate and back to the House and out of the House, then it would go to the governor's office and the governor would sign it. And I believe it's 90 days after the end of the session in which it becomes effective. And so the reason why I tell you that is because we still have quite a bit of work to do. It reminds me of Smoking the Bandit. You got a long way to go.
Short time to get
But
there.
we know we'll get there. Thanks. But anyway, the good thing is we're still in the game. And individuals from our lobbyists to Cece to Ms. Doolin to people across have done just an amazing job. Ms. Boggs, an amazing job in helping people better understand the benefit that this adds to our students and to our communities and to our partnerships. And we're very optimistic that we'll be here coming to you, before or when the session is over, talking to you about how we're going to then grow our associate degree opportunities. And so it's an exciting time for us. And I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that, not only are we still in the game, things are looking good for us. So there's that. And then second is an update. We've touched on this before with you, our foster youth initiatives. We've talked before about how at EVIT we change lives by loving our students and serving our communities, and we do that in so many different ways. And one of the ways in which we do that is that we look for opportunities that we can lean into and lean on populations that for whatever reason have maybe not been given the opportunities that we would want them to be given, and this is foster youth. And so we hired Jaron, who's done a presentation to you, to be our foster coordinator, and he's doing an amazing job. We're still in discussions with a charter holder in order to have a foster youth school on our campus, and that the hope of that is that we have a presentation to you sometime latter part of the spring, sometime in the summer. And assuming that things go the way that we're hoping they go and that your approval of it, then we would hopefully open classes in school year 24 here for foster youth to get their high schooling and or their GED. The last part to that equation is having a space for foster youth to live. Not on permanent, not necessarily permanently, but we know that one of the challenges with foster youth is you could be in a home and having, a home that the student attends Chaparral High School, and for whatever reason that placement doesn't work, and the next placement that's available is in Peoria. And so the foster youth goes from Chaparral to Peoria to Desert Ridge to Cesar Chavez 222, and that inconsistency builds in, issues for the students' learning. And so for us to have a space that potentially could be housing for those foster youth as they're transitioning either out of a single placement to a new placement, or if they're about to age out of the foster system and they need additional space that they can be housed and lived in order to complete the educational opportunities. And so, we've talked about that before, and we honestly thought that was not going to be for a bit down the road. But I'm amazed at how many people believe that this is an opportunity that they want to get behind as well. And so we're hoping to be able to come to you in the next couple meetings with an opportunity that maybe that aspect of that would speed up a little bit with some funding resources that we're hoping that we become eligible for. So I just wanted you to have a sense of where we're at in our associate degree opportunity, but also to circle back to you and let you know that we haven't given up on the foster youth opportunity as well. In fact, it's alive and moving well. And the interesting thing is that those two seem maybe somewhat different, but they're very much the same. They're bookends, right? They're bookends. And at EVIT, you come to us, whether you're in foster youth, whether you want to go straight to the workforce, whether you're in high school, whether you're an adult, whether you want to get initial training for opportunities in management, and we absolutely will change your life. So that's it. There you go. That's all I got.
Thank you.
That's it.
Wilson?
For now.
Jeff Cleatham again. I'll try
That
to
was
keep
all in
this-
one breath.
Is there a chance with their legislation to get an expedited approval and expedited implementation? There's pathways for that.
Yeah, in terms of the associates?
Yeah.
So there is, I think part of, this is part of the reason why we had that HLC item initially too, right? Because part of what we're trying to do is balance out, if we're not going to be able to offer the associates, then there's certain work that doesn't need to be done. If we're going to be able to offer the associates, then there's work that has to be done. So for us, part of that balance is making sure that we're ready when the time comes. And so additionally, that additional 90 days is actually, in some ways, works to our advantage in terms of our preparation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that brings us to our calendar. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 14th here at this building. Anybody has any agenda items, bring them forth now or contact Dr. Wilson directly. And we were talking about having a meeting out at Tower Road. Where are we at?
So we're going to wind up having that probably in April, the business meeting. And the reason for that the reason for that is there's multiple reasons for it, but I think it's the April meeting that we're going to look to have out there.
That's fine. Where are we at on that building? Is it finished or they still?
Aviation's finished. Aviation's
third
finished.
floor and all that?
All of aviation's finished. They're in the process of doing the vet and engineering, and that's coming along. One of the challenges, like I said last time, that we're still trying to work through is water meters and traffic flow from the town of Gilbert and the city of Mesa and ASU. And so that we're going to most likely be in a position where we do the improvements as requested by the city of Mesa on Verona this summer, and in doing so, then have the water meters released to us in a timely manner so we can finish the project, and then continue to work with the town of Gilbert on that second entrance, but hopefully not have that be a stipulation of the water meters being released, because we don't believe that needs to be the stipulation, because we're not going to have that traffic flow there next year. We have a little bit of time.
No, they just need access to them. Okay. Anything further from anyone? And that brings us to the final item, which is adjournment, and we'll vote by acclamation.
Also move.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you,
Aye.
everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Didn't have my microphone on. Oops. Now I do.